I never thought I'd see someone look directly into the flashing lights of an ambulance, cross their arms, and say, "No authorization, no entry." But that's exactly what Karen did. And the craziest part, a girl was dying behind that windshield while our HOA president treated the whole situation like a neighborhood parking dispute. If I hadn't hit record right then, honestly, I don't know how this story would have ended. I'm Tom Bennett. I spent 20 years as a paramedic in the city. Sirens, broken glass, late-night crashes, the whole deal. When I finally moved to Willow Creek Estates, I thought I was escaping chaos. I pictured quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, maybe the sound of sprinklers, or someone mowing their lawn at a reasonable hour. And for about a week, it was exactly that. Peaceful, predictable, normal. Then I met Karen Delmont. Karen wasn't just the HOA president, she was the self-proclaimed guardian of order. The woman drove her silver SUV like a patrol car, windows cracked just enough to peek over her clipboard and spot violations from 20 yards away. She was in her 50s, hair sprayed so stiff it could probably survive a hurricane, always wearing a blazer in colors loud enough to stop traffic. Her whole personality was a warning sign I ignored because, well, I was tired and just wanted a new start. Within my first month, I got 3 violation letters. 3. One for leaving my trash bin out 45 minutes past the pickup window. Another for having a medical response decal on my garage, apparently non-standard signage. And the third one, she dinged me for flying the American flag, calling it aesthetic inconsistency. I called her to clarify, thinking it was some mix-up. It wasn't. She calmly told me, "It's not about patriotism, Mr. Bennett, it's about uniform aesthetics." And she said it with a straight face. My neighbors warned me. Around here, old Mr. Peters said you either obey Karen or she makes your life miserable. I laughed it off then. But he wasn't kidding. I watched her fine an elderly couple for having too many flower pots, scold a mom because her kid's bike wasn't parked at the correct angle, even measure someone's grass with an actual ruler. She lived for control. It was her oxygen. My real trouble started with the ambulance. After retiring, I bought an old emergency van, still functional, and used it for volunteer medical outreach in rural areas. Nothing commercial, nothing shady, just helping people who didn't have easy access to health care. But to Karen, it was a commercial vehicle. One morning, I walked out to a bright orange sticker slapped across the windshield like a scarlet letter. She waited near the gate in her SUV, sipping coffee out of a mug that literally said, "Queen of the HOA." I walked over, trying to stay polite. "Karen, that's an ambulance. I'm a licensed paramedic. It's for emergencies." She smiled, the kind of smile that tells you she's about to ruin your day. "Rules are rules, dear. Maybe you can store it at the hospital." That was the moment I realized she wasn't enforcing rules. She was enforcing herself. From then on, she made me her personal project. Slow drives past my house, photos from inside her SUV, friendly reminders about driveway cleanliness, complaints about my porch light being too bright for neighborhood harmony. I should have been angry, but mostly I just felt tired, exhausted, in a way no night shift had ever made me feel. I started keeping records, screenshots, letters, dates, because something in my gut told me this wasn't going to end with a stern conversation. But even with all that nonsense, nothing could have prepared me for what happened at the annual HOA charity barbecue. I didn't even want to go. My neighbor Linda dragged me along. "You never socialize," she complained. "You need this." The event itself was harmless families, kids, a mediocre band, and Karen, of course, standing front and center, handing out flyers titled "New HOA Safety Policies." Her smile stretched across her face like cheap wallpaper. Then a scream cut through the music. A young woman collapsed near the buffet table, pale, gasping, maybe 20 years old. Instinct took over. I ran straight to her, dropped to my knees, checked her pulse, weak, irregular, and started CPR. Someone called 911. Sirens wailed in the distance. I kept working, sweat dripping off my forehead as I counted compressions, praying she'd hang on just a little longer. The ambulance finally arrived at the front gate, and then stopped. No engine revers, no flashing lights moving forward, just nothing. I looked up and saw the impossible Karen's SUV parked sideways across the entrance like some suburban barricade. She was arguing through the gate intercom, waving her clipboard like it was a police badge. I sprinted across the lawn, chest tight. "Move the car, Karen." She didn't even look stressed. "They didn't sign in," she said. "This is private property." "It's an ambulance," I shouted. "Someone is dying." Well, she snapped, "They can wait until they fill out the proper access form." It felt like my brain misfired. I couldn't understand how a human being could say that. The paramedics were yelling through the intercom, trying to reason with her. She stood her ground like the gatekeeper of some twisted kingdom. That's when I started to crack. I could feel myself slipping into this horrible mix of rage and helplessness. A voice in the back of my head whispered, "Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe she's right about the rules. Maybe—" Then I remembered the girl gasping for air on the grass. I snapped out of it. "Karen," I said, trying to steady my voice, "if you don't move that SUV, you're going to kill someone." She crossed her arms, lifted her chin, and said, "You're not in charge here, Mr. Bennett." "I am." That did it. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "All right, folks," I said out loud, "this is what happens when your HOA president values her gate code more than a heartbeat." Karen's face twisted. "You can't record me without consent. Watch me." Neighbors rushed out. Some gasped. Some yelled at her. The paramedics were trying to drag their equipment through the pedestrian gate like pack mules. Every second we lost felt like another piece of that girl's life slipping away. Finally, the medics and I carried her back toward the ambulance. We got her stabilized barely and wheeled her back to the gate. Karen still refused to move. One paramedic shouted, "Move the vehicle or we'll ram it." She rolled her eyes. Threats from public employees. "I'll be filing a complaint." That's when I looked her dead in the face and said, "You're about to obstruct a medical rescue. That is a felony." For the first time ever, she hesitated. Then she huffed, got into her SUV, and reversed literally 6 feet, just enough for the ambulance to squeeze through. The second the sirens disappeared down the road, I felt this wave of anger crash over me. Karen brushed dust off her blazer and muttered something about ungrateful residents. I pointed my camera at her again and said, "You delayed medical care for 15 minutes. Do you understand that?" She smirked and said, "And yet she's alive, so perhaps you owe me a thank you." That single sentence ended up on every news channel in the state. That night my phone exploded, texts, calls, notifications. My video hit 50,000 views, then 100, then 500,000. People were furious, outraged, and terrified that someone like Karen was in charge of anything. But the moment that truly changed everything was when Linda ran to my porch and said, "Tom, that girl, she's the mayor's daughter." The next morning, the mayor himself showed up at our gate with cameras behind him. Karen tried to spin the story, talking about protocols and community safety, but the mayor cut her off. "You blocked emergency personnel from reaching my daughter." She stammered something about bylaws. He fired back, "Bylaws don't outrank human life." The reporters swarmed. Karen crumbled. By noon, the city attorney launched an investigation. By evening, Karen was sending massive emails blaming everyone but herself. By the next day, officers arrived with a warrant to seize HOA records. She tried, God help her, to block them from entering the clubhouse. The deputy looked at her and said, "Ma'am, the HOA doesn't outrank a warrant." That's when fear finally replaced arrogance in her eyes. During the emergency HOA meeting, residents unleashed years of pent-up anger. Fines for tulips, threats over Christmas lights, harassment, rigged elections, missing HOA funds. I stood up, last played the video, and said, "No rule should outweigh basic humanity." They voted unanimously to remove her. But it didn't stop there. Investigators found embezzlement, luxury spa trips, fancy meals, even a vacation to Aspen labeled as an HOA leadership conference. Eventually, Karen was arrested, charged with obstruction, falsifying records, and misuse of funds. She looked like a ghost being led to that squad car, still convinced the world had wronged her. After the trial, she crossed paths with me outside the courthouse. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You ruined me." I shook my head. "No, Karen, you did that yourself. I just hit record." That's where my story ends. Not with a party or a neighborhood celebration or some feel-good moment on a porch at sunset. It ends right there at the moment the person who once controlled an entire community finally had to face the consequences of her own choices. And if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's simple. Rules don't make a community, people do. And without compassion, rules are just another way to cause harm.